The metal ring squealed as I slowly peeled the shower curtain across the rod and turned the faucet on. After putting on If I Were a Boy by Beyonce, I dunked my head under the hot stream of water while gargling lyrics. The acoustics in my upstairs bathroom beat the chamber rooms in the new Arts Center by leagues, and damn, I sounded good. As the song transitioned, I made a horrifying observation. We've all had that gut-sinking moment of utter dread in the shower when out of the corner of your eye, you see an 8-legged monster crawl across the ceiling on its invisible spindle. Not only is that spider probably going to bite you, but it's also got the nerve to watch you imitate Queen Bee while you're completely nude. In this case, however, I observed a fluffy, leaf-like blob hanging in the space between the transparent and detailed curtains. That's right, it was a living, breathing bat. The water stopped, and I resisted the breaths that wished so badly to fly out of my mouth. I slid behind the curtain, trying to avoid disturbing mini Count Dracula. Despite my efforts, the bat flew out and circled above me like a ceiling fan. I must have been embarrassed by my nudity and by my hair that was glued on top of my head with Pantene shampoo because I didn't make a sound, nada. Gathering my dignity, I robed myself in a towel and I prepared for battle against the bat with kitchen Tupperware. The house was covered in my fresh out of the shower wet footprints and clumps of bubbles here and there. Armed with round Tupperware in my right hand and a red lid in my left, I got down on my hands and knees, pressed my cheek to the floor, peered under the door, and noticed that the bat was squatting contentedly by the toilet plunger. Kicking the bathroom door open, FBI police style, I threw myself and the plastic container over its panicking wings and slid the lid under. Crisis averted. Little to my knowledge, my dad had been testing security cameras for his office in Somerville at the time, and had caught the whole extravaganza on film. Crisis not so averted, am I right? Although my dignity had been slightly bruised in my courageous acts that night, I had successfully dealt with the issue at hand and moved on. About a year after my extravaganza with the bat, I found myself on Brooks campus late in the evening. I was returning from an unproductive night working in the downstairs study room of the library with Owen Borick, Michael Hughes, and Brooke Robinson, debating if anyone's spelling could possibly be worse than Brooks. By the end of the night, I was dragging my feet down Main Street and hefting my book-filled backpack over my shoulder like Santa Claus until I arrived at my 2009 Jeep Wrangler. My teeth rattled like the leaves in the night sky, and upon turning my keys in the ignition, the crimped grass field was illuminated. Letting the car warm up, I rounded to the passenger's door side and pulled on the door handle. The door wouldn't budge. I had successfully managed to lock my keys inside of my running car at 10 p.m. at night, an achievement only I could attain. With my forehead pressed against the fogged window and my body slumped over, I grudgingly dialed the AAA number on my insurance card. For those of you who haven't seen me frustrated, I usually swear words of profanity in German, such as Gottverdammt, Fickerei, or most commonly heard, Scheiße. So the night followed with students leaning their heads out of the windows of Blake, watching one silly, frustrated junior's shadow, waving her hands in the air, swearing in German, waiting impatiently for the tow truck to arrive. My hair was slightly more chaotic than usual, tied on top of my head, looking like a bird's nest that had just survived a storm. I folded my arms in a frustrated pretzel while the man worked his magic on the door. I was completely useless. Watching helplessly from the side, I was glad I had called for external help. Between my freshman and junior years at school, I dealt with plenty of medial challenges such as these, but I struggled more deeply with an issue rooted back to my 7th grade year. Summer was approaching as the final days of 2013 school year was rapidly coming to a close. My friends groaned across the lunch table how they desperately needed to get their beach bods back before lounging in the warm sands of the Atlantic beaches. I agreed with them, but there was one major difference between myself and my closest friends. They were skinny, and I was not. The idea of spending yet another summer in tankinis rather than bikinis saddened me, but it was also a source of motivation for change. I was 156 pounds and terribly ashamed of it, so I made the decision to start dieting in hope of achieving happiness at last. I was doing great, eating turkey wraps and peaches in place of mac and cheese and ice cream. I began running daily, and it was as if change was a tangible object I had finally grasped after 12 long years of being just out of reach. But I began to push limits. I counted calories meticulously and strived each day to consume fewer and fewer of them. I was thriving off of doing less and less, and I loved it. By January of my 8th grade year, I had lost 30 pounds, but I couldn't see the change in my body and in my health. I refused to accept that there was something wrong with me, and I lashed out at those who wished to help. My mother is one of the most persistent, hardworking, and caring women you will ever meet. She has worked her way up through companies off pure determination and the respect of her colleagues. And although she may not know it, she is my biggest role model. She stuck out the long months of my backlash in knowing that I needed help. I was a stubborn 14-year-old girl who was afraid of returning to her old body, and my mother's acts to make changes in what I thought was working for me made me both angry and afraid. I would not accept that there was something wrong and that I indeed needed help. It wasn't until my brother had a hockey tournament in Jay Peak that I made a pivotal realization. I'd been doing crafts at the dining room table in our cottage to ease my anxiety, and I stood up to go to the bathroom. In a moment that seemed both as quick as a camera flash and as long as eternity, I opened my eyes, horrified to see my brother's friend's mom standing over me asking, "Are you okay?" The realization of the trauma my body was enduring caused my heart to throb nearly as much as my pounding head, which had smashed onto the corner of a table just moments before. It was a brutal realization, one I knew would be far from easy for myself or for those who wished to guide me down the road to recovery. Accepting my vulnerability and my need for help, I was able to make a full spin on my heels and walk away from my own deceptions. As teenagers, we are engrossed in the idea of independence, and we are magnificently talented in turning down help or avoiding the possibility of weakness altogether. Many of us don't ask for or accept help because we are afraid of vulnerability. Author of The Art of Asking, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Let People Help, Amanda Palmer, writes on this fundamental fear saying, "If I ask for help, I am not enough. If I ask for help, I am weak." With personal growth, however, maturation flushes insecurity down our moral drains, and we're able to realize that the ability to ask is a strength rather than a weakness. I'm not sharing this experience from my past with you for pity, nor for you to think that this event defines who I am. Rather, I'm sharing this with you because I am proud of what I've gone through. Life happens, and it is not always a smooth road. We have all struggled or are currently struggling with problems of our own. Don't be ashamed of them. Don't feel as if your flaws define you. Be proud of who you are and how far you've come. We've all had chaos in our lives at one point or another, like when I was almost viciously attacked by a bat in the shower. And what do? We capture the problem and deal with it. That's just life. When I tried to handle my issues on my own, I learned after stuffing my problems in a mental box deep down that our struggles are not meant to be locked up forever. And eventually, I set mine free, like the bat flying upwards into the night sky. For the times when we are not able to handle the problem on our own, it's okay to call for external help, as I did when I stupidly locked myself outside of my running car. My mom, therapist, and nutritionist made up my AAA emergency service and helped me open locked doors. I am not ashamed, I am proud, and I am grateful. Thank you, Dad and Aiden, for understanding when I needed to handle things on my own. Thank you, Mom, Laura, and Shelley, for coming to my rescue and retrieving my keys so that I may drive my own car down the road called life. Thank you.